I've used it a couple of times.
Used a couple times. Okay, so you're familiar. Okay, so we are on live. Let me just double check inside the Facebook group here. And I'm just streaming in. Just give myself a second. There's a bit of a 40-second delay is what I've noticed between the two. This video is live now. Watch live. Oh, okay, there's a button here. Streaming in. Oh, okay, there we go. I don't want that because then it's going to be, okay, there we go. Well, hello there, everybody. It's Amy here at Fit and Fierce, and I've got a fantastic guest for you guys tonight, and he's dialing in all the way from down under, and I'm trying to do like a really bad Australian accent, which I decided not to do because, I'm sure you probably get that all the time, right, Maddie? Do you get that all the time?
Yeah, every now and then. Sometimes people mistake me for British as well, so.
Oh, yeah, okay, good. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to tell.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes it's hard to tell. Well, thanks for joining in here with me. And ladies, okay, so my guest here, you're going to love him. His name is Matty Lansdowne. And I'm just going to read this because it's really quite impressive. I just have to read this. So Matty Lansdowne is a scientist, nutritionist, and a health coach that specializes in weight loss and self-confidence for women and busy moms, starting out in the field of nutritional epigenetics. Okay, I just like saying the word epigenetics because it just sounds so smart. And spending several years working in hospitals as part of the disease research team. And this is where Matty and I get along really, really well because he believes that most disease and illness is not due to bad luck, but as a result of poor nutrition and lifestyle choices. And Matty's extensive experience allowed him to uncover the deeper challenge people have with health, which isn't about calorie or kale, love that, but in fact, mindset and behavior change. So having been on his own personal development journey, Matty is now super passionate about showing people how to level up their health so that healthy habits or the best food choices are easy and natural. Likewise, Matty's weekly podcast, okay, this is the best podcast title ever, How Not to Get Sick and Die. I get a kick out of that. Provides its followers and clients with a deep dive into nutrition and how to develop healthy habits that last. And you can find them on Apple, right? Correct? And I think on all the other platforms too,
yeah,
Matty?
all of them.
Okay, so he's pretty easy to find. And for today, we're going to be talking about stress and how that impacts your weight, whether it's weight loss or weight gain, but weight in general. Now, we can talk about this for like ever, right, Matty?
Totally. Yeah, stress it dominates everybody's lives, right?
Yeah, and the thing is, we're so stressed out, we don't even know. We're so stressed out that for so long that we actually don't even know that we're stressed out anymore.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. And I've actually had clients that dubbed themselves people that never stressed out. And then along the journey, we've realized, oh, I'm permanently stressed. And like you're just saying now, is like they're so used to the state of stress, they can't actually identify stress.
Exactly. So I was talking to this woman probably about, might have been about 2 years ago. I want to just tell you this story because it's very interesting. And she was somebody that was very stressed. And she had naturopathic doctors, she had physiotherapists, she had me as a coach, and she had all these practitioners and her massage and massage therapists, and they're all telling her that she's stressed out. However, she had this smart little device on her wrist. I don't know if it was what kind of a technology it was, but basically it was telling her every day how many minutes she was stressed out in that day. And I'm like, okay, you know what? That's not accurate.
How much was it saying?
Like 32 minutes.
Right.
And the thing was, all her practitioners, including myself, we realized based on what she was telling us, is she was under a lot of pressure because of her job and her work. And her body was telling her that she was stressed out. Her muscles were tight. Her stomach was giving her issues, having, she was on keto and, she couldn't eat this or that and all kinds of certain types of food she couldn't eat. And I was like, you are stressed. You actually need to take it, think about how to recover, like how to take it down a notch. Right. And
totally.
And she didn't believe me. Well, she didn't believe any of us.
And I assume the data collection from a device like that would only be heart rate. Um, so determining whether or not you're in a stress response. So,
Right.
and maybe blood pressure, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't account for cortisol or adrenaline in the blood, which are your stress hormones, and how long they stay in the blood. So yeah, I can imagine those types of devices, whilst are useful to collect a little bit of information, are not particularly precise or accurate.
Right, right. So maybe Maddie, you can maybe walk us through how our body gets stressed. Maybe talk about the cortisol and the adrenals and the adrenal glands and the adrenaline. Can we talk a little
Mhm.
bit about that? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah, totally. So I guess it's important. A lot of people have heard, the story about running away from a saber-toothed tiger or a lion. And so the interesting thing is with humans is that we were created to not really stress very much at all, to literally just stress when we needed to fend for our lives. And that might be back in the past, running away from a wild animal, or there was probably a period there in the medieval days where we were running away from someone trying to kill us with an axe. But aside from those moments,
Hmm.
or I guess another moment you would be stressed is hunting as well. Like hunting, because you would obviously have to go out and get food and risk your life in killing a beast. And so outside of those moments and the occasional random scenario that might pop up in your life, we're really not meant to have much of a stress response. So the point of starting at that point is just to be aware that your body is not genetically or physically prepared to be stressed all the time. It's the same kind of conversation we have around sugar consumption. Is that all of human history, sugar was very rarely available, and then overnight we've gone from no sugar, almost no sugar, to basically eating sugar for every single meal, and we've got obviously a world of overweight, sick, and dying people. And stress is a part of that conversation too, because we did the same thing. We went from being not very stressed, unless there was a situation. And then after that situation was over, allowing our stress to come down and hit baseline, to now in a world where the second we wake up, we wake up with a shot of adrenaline to an alarm clock. And then we pick up our phone instantly. And so we're injected into the chaos of the news, which is, usually set up to trigger fear and uncertainty and that type of thing. And then we got the kids that are like yelling and wanting us to do this and that, and so we go from just all day one stressful event to the next. We're into traffic, go to work, emails, and then we're home, and everybody's tired at this point as well as stressed. And so we don't have a body that's actually capable of managing that degree of stress. And so what happens is that stress usually begins with adrenaline's
Hmm.
like the instant reaction. So if you get a chronic long-term stress hormone, it actually unlocks this sugar and in the blood, and then puts it into the blood because we need energy to fight this life-threatening scenario. However, most people are doing what I'm doing now, which is sitting down. So we've just unlocked this sugar, and it's got nowhere to go because we're not burning it. And
Mm.
so normally we would be running away, right? And so then what happens is that sugar ends up being repackaged back into body fat, and for many people that ends up on their belly. So a lot of men and women, usually the belly fat is a result of cortisol, the unlocking of sugar stores, and then the repackaging of sugar stores by stress. And when we're doing this all day, every day, we're in a
Mhm.
situation where obviously we're just packing on body fat, basically.
Right. Wow. You know what? I just love the way you explain that. The releasing of the sugar and repackaging and basically, stores as fat and weight. Right.
Hmm.
So what do we do? What do we do from that? Like so part of the problem is that we don't even recognize it anymore, that we're stressed out anymore. Right.
Totally.
So what are some of the questions that you want to ask, for the ladies to ask themselves to determine, if they're even stressed out?
Yeah, great. A really good one to start with is: am I able to be by myself in total silence for more than 5 minutes? And I actually get my clients to do an exercise, and it's usually because I work with mothers that just like you, they're
Mhm.
super busy. There's lots going on all of the time, and so a quick way to experiment with this is in the car ride. Maybe you've dropped the kids at school, whatever it is. I want you to put your phone out of reach, like in the back seat. I want you to turn the radio off and just drive, nothing else. And just experiment for 5 minutes. And if you find that uncomfortable, or you start twitching, or you're like looking, or you go to automatically turn the radio on or distract yourself, it's highly likely you are in a long-term chronic sustained stress response, because you are totally uncomfortable in a time when there's no stressful stimulation. And so that's a
Mm.
really good place to start. And there's a couple of layers of that too. It's not just biological. There's a lot of psychology going on there too, in the sense that if you are used to that, if your nervous system is used to a chronic ongoing stress response of being distracted all the time, and you're someone that's go, 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 and you're unable to relax and unable to stop, you will also have a belief system about yourself that you are a go, go, go person, that you are someone that doesn't, chill out or take a break, and even if you go on holiday, you still find a way to be busy, whether it be organizing everyone or stressing about where everything is, type thing. And so that's a really good test to be like, am I comfortable doing nothing? Absolutely nothing. And I mean, in this case, you're driving, so you're not doing nothing. But most of the time in the modern day, we're all multitasking and stressing about 75 things at once. And so if we bring it down to just like one task, I'm just driving. If you feel uncomfortable in that scenario, it's highly likely you are in a long-term stress response.
Wow, that's crazy. And you know what? I think that's most people you're right. We are multitasking all day long. And then, and especially since the pandemic, we're working from home. There are no boundaries. The boundaries are complete. I mean, they were blurred before.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you have a device in your hand that you go home with from work, and you're still, answering emails or not. But now you're at home doing your work, and there's literally no boundaries between work and home. And
you're totally right.
Blurs lines, right? And people, and I heard on the news, I think it was the news, they were saying that people are taking less sick time or sick days because they feel guilty because they're already at home.
Totally. And I actually think that's going to be one of the really damaging long-term effects of this whole movement from working from home, because there's no boundaries, and you can no longer relax at home because home is work and work is home, and it's everything. And I think, an office or a location outside of the home, like for me, I've got I've got multiple bedrooms in my apartment, and this bedroom is work only happens in this room, and I close the door at the end of the day. So like I've disconnected. I've got a really strong, healthy boundary there. So, we're obviously in a situation where some people can't do that. However, there's going to be consequences if we don't work to now change that. Now things are starting to end with the pandemic.
Yes, that's so true, right? And I was going to say something now. I can't remember. Oh, can we talk about different types of stress, in the sense that like conscious stress and subconscious stress? Because I think too is some people or some women recognize that they're consciously stressed, but there's also a big population that believe that they're not stressed consciously, but there's the subconscious stress that's a bigger problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's like that multitasking. We've got so many tabs open in our mind, and I think we all know that when there's too many options on a menu when you go out to eat, it's really hard to make a choice, right? And that's another downfall of the modern world, is that there are so many opportunities, even for our kids, that it's potentially a controversial idea. But the fact that our kids, we're running around every night of the week to give our kids every single opportunity. Studies show the more opportunity you have, the less likely you are to succeed, because you are confused. You are trying to do trigonometry about the pros and cons. And there's a comparison actually that's really useful, is ice cream. Baskin Robbins went out of business, 47 flavors, whereas Ben & Jerry's, 7. Right? Because it's a lower amount of options. And the more options you've got, the more maths you have to do. And then you're in a situation where you've got all these tabs open. You're kind of doing all of these different things. And again, we've got this social narrative, particularly for women and mothers, and especially the push from the feminist movement, that you've got to work harder and work more and go harder and keep up with men. And not that I disagree with the idea of that, but there is unfortunately a hormonal cost for men as well. There's plenty of massive cortisol beer bellies out there for men, like it's not about that. But, if we're speaking particularly to women, this mum's got to be everyone.
Yes.
and we're not designed like that. We're actually that's why the saying, it takes a village to raise
Yes.
children, because instead of like everybody coming to you for every possible issue and you having to solve them all, it used to be, oh no, go and talk to Amy. Amy's the person that solves those problems for all the kids. I solve the problems for this category, right? And
Right.
so instead of stressing about all the things that that you need to do, it was a collective and a community. And the more modern we get, it's kind of funny. The internet has connected us more, but it's also disconnected us more, to the
Yes.
point that we have to look like we have it all covered by ourselves and we're in control of everything. And it totally puts the idea of managing stress so far back in our mind,
Mhm.
because we're so worried about the upkeep of how we look to society and making sure we're doing all the things, and all the information we get is that we're like, oh, I'm failing as a mum, I'm failing as a person, I suck at business, I suck at my job. And then that just adds stress, because you don't feel like you're enough, and it plays into this psychology of not being good enough, and it just kind of goes down the wormhole. And so I think that unconscious stress is born from just so much distraction, so many options, and trying to keep up with absolutely everything.
Yes. Yes. I think you're right. And you know what? You're right. And for women, not only that we had to, historically look after the family and bear children and all that, like, the housework part of it, but now you have
Mhm.
the career and job aspect of it
Yeah.
on top of all the other stuff you got to do. Right. And
Mhm.
then, what I'm hearing from a lot of women is they just feel bad for saying no. You know, they,
Totally.
they, like, nothing's even happened. They can't even say no. And they're like, the idea of saying no to something or someone makes them
Mhm.
feel guilty versus, like,
Yeah.
not being able to create those healthy boundaries, and that's a real
Mhm.
detriment, not only to the health of the women, but also to the mental health of their children. Right. It's like, like,
Yeah.
what's the messaging
Mhm.
behind what you do? Like, what do you want to teach your children? Do you want to teach them to be martyrs and have to say yes and feel guilty and shame for all
Mhm.
these things that we are or aren't doing? So
Yeah.
that's a whole nother bag of worms that we could uncover too, right?
Oh,
But
absolutely.
that's a huge thing. It's like all the burden, a lot of the stuff is on women's shoulders, and part of the problem too is historically, as a gender, that's really what we've been designed to do, and then
Yeah.
you add modern life on top of that just exacerbates the problem.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, it kind of triggers or annoys some
Mhm.
people when you have this conversation. But yeah, unfortunately, we weren't designed physically for this world, men and women, but more so women. And that's because you have a monthly cycle, you go through menopause, women's hormones are so much more complex and go on this, unique journey. Men's don't.
Yes.
And again, it's not saying that men can handle stress, because clearly there's just as many overweight men, with stress responses and have heart attacks because they can't talk about their emotions for 40 years, you know. So there's no like, oh, men have got it covered. They don't. They've just got a different set of problems,
Yes.
right? So no, you're totally right, and I think too, it's like really asking yourself, like, why do I need to do this? And you might try and distract yourself by being like, oh, it's expected of me, mum wants me to do it, or I'm meant to do this. But really taking some time to unpack those ideas, because when you look at all of the research and the books that have been written
Hmm.
from people on their deathbed, or
Hmm.
people that have worked in hospices,
Hmm.
one of the most recurring themes in that kind of data is
Hmm.
that people wished that they had told more people in their life to go away. And they're not the words they used, but to
Right.
go away. And you hear that from old people all of the time. Do whatever you want, tell people to go away. And it doesn't mean you cause issues, but the people we often look up to in society that are really successful are people that are strong. They're strong with their words, they're strong with their boundaries. They
Hmm.
say, this is okay, this is not. I'm available here, I'm definitely not here. And we aspire to be like them, but at the same time, don't actually embody any of their attributes, right? So I think getting clear on, the belief system we have behind, why do I need to be busy? Why do I need to do all these things? Will I be happier? Will I actually achieve all the things if I'm trying to do 27 things at once?
Yes, yes, for sure. And even on another level is
Hmm.
how good are you feeling in your body? Like, are you
Mm.
exhausted? You
Yeah.
know, how tired are you? Are you just like, are you doing the best job that you can be with your children because you're exhausted all the time? Because when you're that tired, clearly, you're not setting boundaries around your children and things that they do, and
Mhm.
so on and so on, right? So, and
Yeah.
it really boils down to, like, how do you want to feel about you and your body in your skin? How do you want to live your life? Do you want to feel like you're exhausted? Because I know I've seen women,
Mhm.
they're just wiped out. Forget the weight. They're wiped out.
Yeah. Totally. And I think about it too, like in context of, so like kids being born now are basically born into this absolutely toxic sugar world, right? When it comes to food. And it's like if we go back a few generations, it's like our grandparents we saw maybe gain a little bit of weight later in life as the
Mhm.
sugar industry came in. Then our generation came in and people started getting sort of overweight and diabetes started appearing in teenagers. And now we've got a situation where literally, you've got diabetes from the day you're born, basically, for some children. It's the same with stress, right? Is that beforehand, when we didn't have the internet and all of this, amazing technology, in the beginning, our grandparents had a more normal stress response to life. It doesn't mean that it was perfect, but it was more normal. Then we introduced a bit more technology in the next generation, and now children are being born into this exceptionally stimulating world. Plus, not only that, they're getting all this input from screens and all of these advertising and games that are just, making them function at such a high level,
Mhm.
that they're also looking to their parents. And this is the same thing with food, and there's like, that's how I should show up in life. That's how I should show up. And I talk about this with the idea of self care is not selfish, and the way that you can justify it as a mother that it's not selfish is because is the second that your child moves out of home to begin adulting themselves,
Mhm.
unconsciously or consciously, likely it'll be unconscious, they then go, how do I look after myself? How do I show up in the world? And it will be to default to the primary parent or parental figure that they had, because that's who they grew up embodying. And if
Yes.
you ran yourself ragged with stress, they're going to do the same from an even younger age than you did. Which, if we want to talk about, motivation to be, managing stress and looking after yourself, is that means that they'll effectively end up dying earlier. And we're in a situation with a combination of stress, sleep, and poor food choices. Is that this generation are actually, due to die sooner than their parents because of how toxic this world is. So, making sure that you're not handing off these behaviors and belief systems to your children without even realizing, but at the same time, you're probably justifying your busyness to serve those children.
So true. And I've what I've noticed recently is I've come across some 20-year-olds, and they're full of anxiety. Anxiety is a
Mm,
form of stress.
yeah, totally.
So if you're hearing people suffering from anxiety, that's stress going on within them, and they're like
Hmm.
20 something.
Yeah,
I
no,
mean,
it's
I'm a
and
lot
it's like
older than you.
depression and
Yes.
yeah, like all of these different things are becoming so incredibly normal, which is just again another way for the body to sustain long-term stress.
Yes, yes. And so let's move on from that. So now we all know what
Yep.
stress is. And how that impacts our weight. And
Hmm.
so, what are some simple strategies that we can implement right away to help with
Yep.
stress?
Yeah, great. So the first one is to do the car exercise, like just
Yes.
5 minutes. So you don't have to be in the car. You can even go for a walk without your phone. That's really important. Another one is breathing. You already do it. It's really easy, but there's a breathing technique called 4-7-8. So you breathe in for the duration of 4 seconds. You hold it in. So like you want to have a real deep diaphragm breath, breathing into your stomach. You want to hold it in there for 7 seconds, and then you want to breathe out slowly with kind of pursed lips for 8 seconds. So the idea of this is that when your out breath is longer than your in breath, you will start to reduce the level of stress in your body. And you'll start to shift your nervous system over to the rest, digest, and repair. And actually, this is something I get my clients to do before they eat, every single time before they eat, because a lot of people are eating in a stress response. They're eating on the go, they're running, they're sorting out all of these different things. They're at their desk working while they're eating. And if we're in a stress response, then our stomach and our gut is, in fight and flight mode, right? And potentially freeze as well, which is not rest, digest, and repair. And so we can have gut issues, we can have digestive issues, we can have issues going to the toilet. So we want to really make sure that we lower the stress before we eat. But before we do anything, you can do the 4-7-8 before you go to bed. You can do it at any moment in the day that you feel stressed to reground yourself, bring yourself back.
Mhm.
And I would suggest, doing it like 4 or 5 times. So it would end up being about 2 minutes. But you can do it for 5 minutes, you can do it for 10 minutes, and you can get to a point after you've done it 20 or 30 times where you just feel so chill.
Yeah. You know what? You're absolutely right. Breathing. I just finished doing a breath work certification.
Oh,
And
nice. Which one did you do?
I just did a 20-hour one at this local meditation studio that I belong to.
Nice.
You know what? I'm telling you, you can literally, it was only 20 hours. I believe it, I was over Zoom, unfortunately, but I was over a computer. But however, what was interesting was I could feel like, I think maybe we can talk a little bit about this parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is for the energy and one's for the relaxation. And just in the first hour or two that I was doing this certification, I literally felt my whole nervous system calm down. And and it was amazing. And like Maddie says, we do it every day.
Yeah. You're an experienced breather already.
Exactly. and that's a huge one. And I love that car one, or going out for a walk without your technology. I think that's a real test of whether, what it is, because I'm guilty of it as well. Like, I'll be in the car and I feel like I'm missing out on something, and cars are now, hooked up with your technology, right? Like Apple CarPlay or whatever it is. And you can get your text messages while you're driving. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You can do so much while you're driving these days. Like,
so much.
It's crazy. But again, it's like that multitasking, and we're getting to a point where our systems and our nervous systems are so wired for this ongoing stress and ongoing input that we don't know what it's like to actually chill out. And when we do, we actually feel anxiety because we're so used to this stimulation and all this incoming data and information that as soon as it's gone, we're like, oh, this, like, has somebody died? Like, what has happened? Like, when really we're just taking a break, and this is a good thing.
And you touched on something earlier just a moment ago, the gut health, right? And and I'm telling you, like, probably at least 50% of women that I know have gut issues. Sorry, I forgot to turn off my email. But they have gut issues, and gut issues, like can't eat this, can't food sensitivities. That's stress. Would you not agree, Maddie?
Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of people associate the idea of feelings with our mind, like that. They're like, we think about depression, or we think about anger, or we think about love, and when it comes to stress, those hormones are mostly released in the gut. Most of the receptors are in the gut for both happy hormones and stress hormones, both dopamine and cortisol. So that's often why we have, we often have issues with digestion, not only because the entire nervous system is in the wrong state, but also when you can kind of eat in these situations and then you'll feel a bit sick. And that's because these hormones are literally swimming around with the food that you've just put in.
Right. Love it. Great information. And the last one I want to cover too, that I typically recommend for a lot of women is sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. And that's a big one, especially if you're a mother, right? Is like trying to get enough sleep. But I would say sleep is the number one pillar of all states of health ever, basically. And if you're in a situation where you get up an hour earlier and cut your sleep an hour shorter just to get to the gym, I would say probably long term, you're better to take that hour of sleep and ditch the gym. Not that the gym is not important, but I think sleep is more important. And in the context of stress, not getting enough sleep, we literally wake up stressed because we have to run on cortisol to keep us awake.
Yes. It's so true. And I always tell women, like, stop Netflixing your night away.
Yes. Totally.
Because you can't just watch one episode. You got to watch like 2 or 3.
Totally.
and I get it. However,
and removing TVs from the bedroom. That should just be like, you want your bedroom to be like in your mind a place that you go to rest, that there's no stimulation. And so one of the little things you can do is to begin to declutter your bedroom. Your bed should be for sleeping only and maybe getting dressed. Outside of that, There shouldn't be any screens that like. And I know in the beginning that's like, well, everybody says to me, Maddie, I use my phone as an alarm. Believe it or not, technology for alarm clocks has also moved forward, and it's phenomenal. Like I've got a couple of different alarm clocks that I've tested over the years, and alarm clocks will basically tell you your life story now if you'd like it to. So you can buy them. You can buy really great ones that you can program however you like to play whatever music you want. And so yeah, you can get the phone out of the bedroom. And I would encourage people to start there too. Not necessarily like the first thing is just to turn it off. Because there's another thing that comes up in the sleep idea is that once upon a time in history, like, you know, your kids would go out, maybe they'd go to a party or to a friend's house, and they would, you know, if anything happened, they'd ring the landline, or you just wait until you saw them tomorrow. Now people are like, nope, I need to have my phone on because what if anything happens? You know what I mean? And whilst I understand that level of concern, it's 99% of your life is going to be spent worrying for the 1% of the time the phone rings. And there's a massive health risk to that, right?
Yes.
So yeah, that's something to consider as well, is getting the phone out of the bedroom.
Yes, because the phone for sure, because it's too accessible. Number one, two, the idea of the blue green light that's emitting from the screen that is impacting your serotonin, your melatonin in the evenings, right, when you're too close to the screen, and as well, did I say EMF already? The electromagnetic field that definitely impacts your sleep as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, the blue and white light that comes out of all screens literally tells our brain that it's morning. Like so, and it hits a thing in the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, and that is the center of our biological clock. So if before you go to bed, you are looking at a white screen or looking at Netflix, you're literally telling your brain it's morning. So it sets up all of your metabolic pathways to, you know, for the day to go ahead. And you can, you know, factor into that. You're obviously meant to be asleep, but your body's acting like, you know, it's burning fuel or it's getting your cortisol up. And that might result in you waking up lots of times in your sleep, not getting to sleep for hours until your body finally realizes it's actually nighttime. And the catch is that a lot of people that can't get to sleep sit on their phones. So yeah, we're in this situation where it's like, even if you do fall asleep, it's not going to be deep sleep because your brain thinks it's daytime.
Yes. And if you're hormonal, that makes it even worse.
Yeah, add in that, or if you're in perimenopause.
Like, hello.
Oh, yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
So if you're already struggling with sleep, and then you add the screen or the EMF on top of that, hello. Guess what? Guess what's not happening tonight? Right, man?
Totally. And if you can't get rid of the phone straight away, like there's a bunch of different, like a lot of phones have red light filters built in now, but I would also encourage people to go to the App Store and download an additional one, because the one you get on the phone isn't enough. And in the beginning, your eyes will be like, I can barely see this. And then you'll slowly adjust over a couple of nights. And then you'll have this moment where you accidentally turn it off and you'll be like, whoa, how did I even look at this screen before? Like, because, you know, you've gotten used to a much healthier amount of blue light.
Right. Okay. So one last thing. I remember buying these glasses that were to block, I think they were tinted. They were like red. It was to block the blue green light. I remember putting that on. And the first time I put it on, it took about good 30, 40 minutes for it to kick in. And all of a sudden I was like, whoa, I was
totally.
So...
Yeah, I have some of those.
There they are. Those are the ones. They
got some red ones too.
Yeah, those are the ones. I think I bought them on Amazon for like $15, $20 or whatever. It was very inexpensive. I remember having that on, and literally I could feel my eyes closing.
Yeah, it's so relaxing.
It was so relaxing. So the first time I put it on took about 30, 40 minutes. And next night I put it on took about maybe 20, 30 minutes. And as I got more consistent in wearing them on a daily basis, it was easier for it to kick in. And I felt very relaxed, and it made a huge difference.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of those glasses. And actually, interesting little story is that I had a client, so sleep is a part of the program that I've got, and buying some of these is part of it as well, as well as getting red globes. So you can get red globes for your house. So if anybody walks past my place at night, it basically looks like a brothel, but it's good because it makes going to sleep super easy. But I have a client who did the same thing. So she changed all of her lamps to red globes, and she has 2 autistic children. And she said after night 1 that she has never seen her kids in their whole lives so calm.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what are they? Just red light bulbs?
Yeah, so you can get them from like party stores that, you know, like, or anything like that. Couple of
Ah,
dollars. There's lots of really fancy ones that have got research backing them these days, which are like $60 a globe. But
right.
yeah, the ones I've got here are just red globes from a party store, and actually they're remote control, so you can have white during the day, you can have red at night. And it just, so there's, you know, I've got one in my bathroom, I've got one in my bedroom, I've got one in the lounge room, and at night it's just like, until you do it, it's hard to explain. Your nervous system
Mm.
is just, and your stress is just so much lower. And then you add in the glasses as well for, like, you know, because you've got kitchen lights on and different things. It's like, it feels like you're maybe a bit of a serial killer, but but you end up feeling so good and you get to sleep so well.
Oh, okay. Guess what I'm doing tomorrow? I'm gonna be getting those lights because that's what,
Yeah.
because sometimes glasses are a bit hard to wear and they weren't the most comfortable for me, but maybe the red
Yeah.
lights. Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So
It's such a
okay,
cheap solution.
that's a cheap solution. Okay, I'm gonna put
Mhm.
some in my bedroom in the bathroom instead of having night lights. I'll have red night lights instead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes when I get up to go to the bathroom, like that little bit of red light kind of
Mhm.
sets me off a little bit. Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. So one last thing I want to cover is, we kind of touched on, how stress can impact your weight. And
Mhm.
and some of the things we covered was the, like walking without your phone,
Mhm.
sleep, the breathing exercises.
Mhm.
So, when you do those types of things and you lower your nervous system,
Yeah.
can you actually lose weight from just doing those things?
That's a good question. It would be very hard to measure. However, having said that, and you've probably worked with people like this too, that were eating correctly, that were smashing the gym, you know, doing all of those things and still couldn't lose weight. And when you look at their schedule, they're just wired from like 5 a.m. to 10 or 11 p.m. They're just go, 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 go. And you can actually subtract, you know, like the gym a couple of days a week and get some more sleep and focus on stress and lower that cortisol. And then we've got access to burning that body fat again. Because you can even be, you know, not that I'm a huge fan of counting calories, but you could, even if you are in a significant calorie deficit, cortisol can still be blocking the access, because when cortisol goes up, so does insulin. Insulin's a fat storage hormone, and it's a hormone that keeps fat in storage as well. And so even if you're not getting enough food, just being stressed can drag cortisol going up, drags insulin up, which keeps the fat in store. So even if you're in any situation that's where you're smashing your body to try and get it to lose weight, if stress is a part of that, then unfortunately you're not going to be able to lose very much weight. You might plateau really quickly. You might get a short-term result, but I
Right.
think I think I always think of the body that, you know, we're very multi-dimensional beings in the
Mhm.
sense that, you know, stress impacts us, food impacts, movement impacts, relationships impact us, belief systems about ourselves impact us. And so yeah, we really have to come at it from all of these angles, which might sound overwhelming, but you can do it at all, you know, all of those different things at, you know, 1 or 2 or 3% at a time.
I agree. I agree. All right. That was some great tips, Maddie. Thank you so much for coming on today for Fit and Fierce. And we got some good little tidbits for sure. So hey ladies, so make sure you check out Maddie Lansdowne's podcast, How Not to Get Sick and Die. You can find it on any single platform. So be sure to check him out. He's got like lots of episodes and they're all very interesting. I've listened to a few of them. Definitely worth checking it out for sure. So thank you again, Maddie, for coming on today. Really appreciate it from the down under. And I mean, hello, like, don't you just love the accent, right? I mean, come on.
Thanks so much, Amy. I've enjoyed hanging out with you and just shooting the conversation.
Yeah. All right. Thanks so much. Bye, ladies.